Joining us now, she's the head coach at UNF as they get set for the of course, in the fall right now, getting set for the 2022 season. Who better? Glad to have her back on. We were going to have her on a couple years ago back when then the world ended. Thankfully, we're in a better place now. And I speak of Marcie Higgs, who joins us back here on In the Circle. Coach, it's been too long.
It really has been. It really has been. And when things kind of shut down pretty abruptly and still not completely back to normal, but happy to be where we're at.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's start with that, because I remember when we were actually scheduled, we were going to do an interview that week when everything shut down, because your program was kind of on an upward trend there. You had made the run to the conference championship the year before in 2019, made a great run to the ASUN championship game, and really had a good thing going there in 2020. What has it been like from your standpoint with the program from that point on, and kind of navigating through everything that everybody's kind of had to navigate through here over the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, it's definitely been an emotional roller coaster, especially for the players. Of course, COVID kind of shut down a season when we were having like a crappy start. It was actually our best start in program history, and comes to a screeching halt, and it was really tough for everyone. And then trying to navigate the eligibility relief and if players are able to take it or not, pending their academic programs. And so that's still honestly a little bit of a whirlwind as we move forward and trying to sort out rosters and stuff like that. And, we have a freshman right now that never stepped foot on this campus and never met us face to face until, this past summer recruiting. She was already coming. She was already set. But we did her meetings via Zoom. And then she came to campus with her dad, but it was a dead period. And it caused all kinds of chaos, but thankfully she's here. She's stuck with her commitment. She's doing great and loving life. So doing great things for us. But the 21 and 22 recruiting classes have really kind of suffered through some of the COVID stuff and trying to navigate, their recruitment via social media and live streaming. And that's, not the easiest thing to do, but, we're all kind of learning.
Yeah, you mentioned, I would imagine you're meeting, you're kind of reintroducing yourself in some ways, right? This fall is to the freshman classes, because for the last year or so, you've probably had communication basically virtual. Probably you haven't had that face to face, which I think people now understand. Don't take it for granted as much as maybe they did before.
Yeah, I think last year was really tough. Like we ended up having a bunch of contact tracing issues in the weight room, so then we pulled them out of the weight room, and then we're in two different dugouts during practice, and keeping up. Usually when we travel, we try to separate roommates so that they're getting out of their comfort zones and in with new people. And last year, because of COVID and, all the stuff with the contact tracing, we had to keep roommates in pods and keep them all together. So they didn't really have any personal interaction with anybody else. So it was a really difficult year, especially, the experience that you're hoping for your athletes is not at all what they were able to get last year. And don't get me wrong, like I'm thankful we were able to play games. It was just weird. It was a weird year. But so this year, they're all just grateful to be in the same dugout. So you're right. Like, we're definitely not taking little things for granted anymore.
So let's talk about, obviously, this year's team here and sort of kind of the outlook. You've got some young, talented players coming back. You've got some newcomers on the team as well. Just kind of describe the blend that you have from the new faces, but also a lot of young players that grew, took some experience. And that was the big positive from 21 is, even though you were playing from catch up. And I know I've talked to a lot of coaches that last season they felt like they were playing catch up for the whole year, basically on the fly. But through that, they're going to be better off for it, maybe perhaps starting this year.
Yeah, we have some players that are bringing back a load of experience from, playing in our conference and having been here. Kayla McGorry, COVID got her a 6th year. So, she's been here almost as long as me at this point. Morgan Clausen coming back on the mound. We added a couple transfers prior on the mound. Aaron Kyle was a redshirt kid for us last year. So she's coming in. She'll be a one and done as a grad transfer for us. Paige Fent is a big vocal leader in the infield. We'll probably do some catching this year as well. Shannon Glover was one of a big offensive player for us 2019. And then, coming back this year with a lot of confidence, a lot of experience, just a year of maturity and growth. Bailey Agigi was a transfer that came in the outfield, super vocal leader, great defensive player, is kind of learning to be able to slap and swing and use those skills however she reads the defense, has gotten really mature with that. And then, like you said, we added a bunch of transfers this year that I think are going to come in and be immediate impacts. players who have postseason experience that are bringing the mentality that we're looking for. And players just, the COVID has kind of created a larger pool of grad transfers because of that year of eligibility relief. And, they're coming in and they want to go out, on top. So, I mean, they're coming in here with a little bit of chip on their shoulder. And, we have some players that are coming in and leading right away, which isn't an easy thing to do on a new team. But, like I said, these are girls that have 1 year to do whatever they want to do. And I mean, they've been fantastic addition for us.
Let's talk about the transfer, some of among the new faces, because you mentioned you've got players with postseason experience. I don't know, was that on purpose? Was that something you were looking for in the portal? It just kind of played out that way? What kind of take me through that process? Obviously, your talent is at the forefront, but the fact, a Savannah Chanel from Liberty, for example, Takia London, UCF, Haley Bejarano, UCF, all of them have that postseason experience. They just had it, recently and been a part of those programs that have had the postseason run. Take me through that as far as on the list as you're kind of going through it.
I think that's something you're always looking for, right? We're preaching to our kids a certain mentality and what it takes to win and what it takes to get to regionals. And these guys are coming in already having that understanding. They've been there. Some have been there consistently. So they know what it takes every single day to make sure in May you're where you want to be. And, being able to add some of those players to our roster has been huge. I mean, last year, we added Izzy Kelly from James Madison, and she had been to a World Series. And, it's just a different perspective to bring into this group. And, the regional is still something that we're looking to try to do for the first time. So for us to bring in kids with that mentality that already have that understanding, I think is huge for our program.
Let's talk Savannah, obviously coming over from Liberty. What does she bring to the table?
Oh my gosh, a tremendous amount of athleticism, a huge familiarity with the Atlantic Sun Conference, proven success in this conference, even as a youngin'. And, she holds down shortstop. And, that was an issue that we had last year. We had an injury at shortstop, and it kind of set off a whole chain of events that ended up being not very pretty for us. And so we brought in a few kids that are able to play short. And, she's just been phenomenal.
Your roster is set up to be maybe the most competitive fall, because you got some battles here. You got some players that are hungry for playing time. You got the mix. What has that been like so far here as you've kind of get going here in the fall?
Well, I think, like you said, honestly, I think COVID has kind of helped as well, because they're so grateful to all be together in one place that when you talk about having healthy competition to make a program better, I think they're embracing that now. We have 2 players at every position at least. And I think that's been super helpful. Nobody can take a day off, or someone's taking their spot in the depth chart. And I think it's been a really good situation for us in order to elevate the program as a whole.
Of course, it helps when you have players coming back like Ashley Gulbel, who led the league in hitting. You know how to produce hitters that lead the league in hitting over there at UNF. That's become synonymous with the A's son. What makes her such a great hitter?
Well, for one, we have Jeff Conrad on staff who works very closely with all of our hitters. Last year, Gobel really kind of took it upon herself to start working a lot of individual sessions with Coach Jeff. And you could see an instant difference. And she has the work ethic, and she has the drive and the personality to be able to do that. She's not a kid that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on herself during her at-bats. So I always felt really good when she was coming up in pressure situations, because I knew she was going to be chill. And from a catching standpoint, honestly, she just has a really good head on her shoulders, and she does things really well. She makes our pitchers look really good. She's a great receiver, and she knows what she's doing with the ball in her hand. So I never worry that she's going to, make a dumb decision in a close game, because she just always has it together.
Is she one of your leaders on the team? Who are some of the leaders, especially on the offense? We'll focus on the offensive side, that either leads by example or maybe leads with a vocal voice.
I think, Kayla McGrory, like I said, she's been around for a long time. She kind of made a statement from her original freshman year when she came in and was, defensive player of the year. And she's more of a leader by example, but over the last 2 years, she's become a lot more vocal, kind of holding people accountable. And when she speaks, people listen. And I think that's been really effective for us. Paige Fent is a big vocal leader for us. Hits in the middle of our lineup. So she's another one that kind of understands, what it takes. Even right now, she's doing her student teaching right now. So she gets up every morning at 6 a.m. to get lift and conditioning in. goes to teach all day and then comes bolting back to the field to make practice and get her extra hitting workouts and stuff in. So she's taken on quite a workload, and I think that's a really good example as well.
Other new faces, I mentioned London comes over from UCF, as does Bejarano. You got a young freshman, Hadley Reichert, as well. Talk about those three and what their contributions to this team, you hope.
Well, I think Bejarano has been a great leader for us right from the beginning. And I think we knew, obviously, Jeff, having been a coach at UCF prior, was familiar with Bejarano for sure. And that was the first thing he told me, is that you're going to love this kid from a leadership standpoint. And she has not let us down at all. Just super responsible, super on top of things, not afraid to come in and, be vocal and get things going in the right direction. Takia London, super athletic. And honestly, the hardest thing we've had with her is trying to figure out where we want her to go on defense, because she's so versatile. Great arm, super fast, can play anywhere. So that's been a nice luxury as well. That's obviously something that helps us get all of our bats in the lineup. And then Hadley Reichert has just been super impressive. She's our only freshman. And so not an easy situation to come into, especially when you're adding in, 5 transfers that have a lot of experience. But she, meshed with everybody right away, is, vocal at practice, which really impressed me. I don't see that a whole lot from freshmen. Moves really well in the middle of the infield. She can play shortstop, second base, and we could probably move her around from there, but she's been really holding it down. So I think she's been doing a really good job with live hitting too. We were actually laughing the other day because first day of live hitting, every single at bat, she's coming up, she's either humming, singing, or whistling. And I'm like, this kid is not stressed out. And I love that.
Oh my good. Well, I gotta tell you, between her and Bejarano, you got some singers now on the team. So that's what it sounds like to me. Because Haley, definitely not shy to use the vocal cords. She could do a lot of broadcasting stuff in her future if she wants to. Just getting to know her. Let's talk about your pitching. You mentioned you returned Morgan Clausen. What does that mean to your staff and then the rest of your staff?
I think Clausen coming back, she kind of went through her whole learning curve her freshman year. And by the time we hit the ASUN tournament in Clausen's freshman year, she was probably throwing as our number one, most dependable, throwing with a lot of confidence. And she's just kind of continued that ever since. So having someone with that much experience on the mound has been huge for us. And then we add in, Erin Kyle transferred last year from Lamar, redshirted last year. So she'll be making her grand appearance this year. Hallie Aaron's transferred in last year from UNLV. So she brings great experience, and she got a lot of innings last year too. So she's bringing back experience. Izzy Kelly, like I said, from James Madison, and Skylar Stockey, who transferred from UTEP. So we have actually some older kids on the mound, and with the COVID year, they now are a little bit more experienced, and I think that's been super helpful for us as well. But we're going to need them to do well. You know what I mean? Like you said, we have all the pieces now. We feel like we have the offense. We feel like we have a great defense. And the pitchers, I think our pitchers are going to shine this year as well.
When you have those many different faces, is there any team things you do to kind of create that chemistry off the field? Is that how imperative is that to create that chemistry on the field? Maybe get to know each other, things like that, especially in a year this year?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that was something that we haven't really been able to do a lot of in the last year and a half. And, when we came back this fall, we were kind of navigating, what can we do? What can we not do? COVID's kind of still around. Numbers were starting to head back up in Florida when we came back to school. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it is super important for them to get to know each other on and off the field. And they are really good about that. Like I said, as soon as we gave them the go ahead to hang out with people from, other houses and other roommates, they were all over it. They hang out, they go to the beach together, they do dinners together. We have a ropes course on campus that we're in the process of setting up for them to do ropes course and zip line and all of that, to try to get some of them, to get to know each other off the field and not just as an athlete.
Of course, your pitching staff's led by Courtney Racky, the pitching coach, one of the greats to wear the UNF colors. Talk about the impact of she's made, having her back on the program. You know her as well as anybody. What is it about her that it seems to bring out the best in everybody? She did that as a player, and now she's doing it here with her staff.
Yeah, when she was a player, she was actually the one that I always talked about a lot after she graduated, that I was always super impressed. Having been one of our, the best pitchers in our history, was also one of the most selfless. and always wanted the team to be successful. If she's on the mound, if someone else is on the mound, was kind of irrelevant to her. Obviously, she wanted the ball in her hand, but she wanted us to be winning first. And I thought that was huge. And then she left here, went to West Virginia Wesleyan, went to University of Buffalo. And so she's brought, outside drills, outside information coming back, and has kind of been able to develop her own style. And just having a former athlete on staff who's a little bit older and separated in age from the current players, I think is a really good look for our program, having those athletes want to come back and stay a part of the program. She runs individual bullpens. I don't know how she does it some years when we have more pitching. I've seen a lot of pitching coaches start out with individuals and end up going to double bullpens and stuff. And she somehow, since she got here, has been able to maintain one-on-ones. And I think our pitchers really enjoy it because they're getting super individualized attention. And I think it brings out the best in them.
It's probably part of a great staff you've got here. I mean, Jeff, we've talked about Jeff in the past when you've been on, but for those that may not be aware, Jeff Conrad, obviously well respected in the game. I mean, I've spoken to Patrick Murphy of Alabama head coach and Tim Walton. They both have brought up him as someone, as far as they respect, as far as one of the top coaches, as far as offensive minds. What is it about him that certainly helps your program and helps your offense, as you mentioned, from a recruiting standpoint and just from a developmental standpoint?
I would think he relates really well to the players, and he's obviously super knowledgeable at what he's doing. Like you mentioned, Patrick Murphy, he has really good contacts, and he's not afraid to use them to, people challenge him, and he uses it as an educational piece for him in order to grow. You mentioned the recruiting piece. I think that's been huge. He's a great recruiter. He loves making all the phone calls, and he's great with the social media stuff, which, it was a little bit of a learning curve for me. It wasn't my wheelhouse, but COVID kind of forced that out of all of us, I think. But he's always been really on top of that. But he gets a lot of players in to do one-on-one stuff, and it really resonates with them, makes them feel like we're invested in them, and he gets results, man. It's kind of incredible. And he's been around with me. I think this is year number 7. So the consistency certainly helps our entire program. And I think we're able to kind of, banter back and forth a little bit and makes our staff better in the process. So I love that he's been here for as long as he has, and he's brought a lot of knowledge to our program.
And then you've got Gina Snyder has become a great story, even this offseason nationally when she joined Athletes Unlimited, came back playing, obviously an Arizona graduate. What has it been like to have her?
Well, interesting, because today's day 1 for her. So I'll get back to you on that. She was actually prepared to start day 1 of school and got the call from Athletes Unlimited and had to report. So she ended up, we thought it was a great experience for her and going to be great stuff to bring back for our program. So by all means, go and play for as long as you can. You know what I mean? Your body's not going to last forever. Go throw, go pitch, be around it. And I think it was a really good experience for her, but she actually she got here, she saw the scrimmage on Friday and got to campus this morning. So
that's pretty nice. How did you all end up connecting?
Through Florida Gulf Coast League. So we kind of were in contact with them, and Jeff has contacts down there, and found out that she was looking for a volunteer position because she was a GA over at Jacksonville. So I was more than happy to steal her from them, conference rivalry. But no, it's been good. She's finishing up her grad program over there, but was interested in getting her feet in the door a little bit more with the coaching aspect. So it was a good move for both of us.
Yeah, to have somebody that's coming from a program like Arizona or Mike Contreras, that's pretty good deal to land there. And you mentioned the Athletes Unlimited. I mean, that was huge. It's huge exposure for you. I mean, I remember, you and I used to talk about that when you had Shelby on the staff, when she was playing in the NPF, and how much exposure that brought to your program. That's valuable for that really, I don't know. You can't even put a number or an equation on that, can you?
No, you really can't. It's, they have instant credibility coming in here, because even if our players hadn't, been familiar with these guys in the past, they're watching Athletes Unlimited, they're stalking, the drafts and the games and following points and all that stuff. I mean, that league has been a really great thing for our sport.
It has been. And the players, I would imagine when she walks in, it's like, oh yeah, I just saw you in Athletes Unlimited. I know who you are. It was kind of like, the same thing when Shelby's like, oh, I just saw you playing the NPF. I mean, again, those are things players, that really has an impact on players more than I think regular people understand.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other part of that too is I think it really helps the mentality of our hitters when you put players like both of them on the mound, and they're being asked to hit against pitchers they're sitting there playing pro ball, and when they're successful, it obviously develops a whole different confidence level. But I mean, obviously, nothing detrimental is going to come out of putting those guys on the mound and asking them to hit 68-mile-an-hour pitching during VP. So it's something that we haven't always had in the past. It's something a lot of programs probably don't have access to that I think is going to give us a little bit of an advantage this year.
And then I met, with Courtney, having gone to school at UNF, I would imagine if I'm a player right now at UNF, I can go to her about anything because she's probably gone through every single experience that I'm currently going through as a student, let alone a student athlete.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, she's kind of been through the gamut of everything. Like, she's familiar with the campus. She's familiar with professors. She's familiar with, academic support staff within athletics and what they're going through on a day-to-day. And I mean, she played for me, so like she can help them with how I am, So no, I think it's been super positive. And, she's had her share of injuries and can kind of help talk them through that kind of stuff as well and how to handle it physically and mentally. And I think all of that has been a huge asset.
Let's talk about the A-Sun. A two-bid league coming off in 21 with Liberty and then Kennesaw getting in. Because I've talked to you and I've talked to other coaches in the league and how, I would say all with a chip on the shoulder with getting the respect for the league. It's always been a very high-rated RPI league. It's been at times a top 5 league. It's definitely been a top 7 league, but yet, it's always been, for a little while, it's been stuck in that one big league. How your reaction when you saw that on Selection Sunday? You say, finally, we get a two-bid league, and Kennesaw gets the benefit of the doubt for being as good as they are, playing a great resume. Liberty, obviously, what they've done, a two-bid league, I feel like had to be a positive night there for the league and for all the coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I think since, I've been here, this is year number 14 for me, and I think one time prior we had 3 teams get in, yep. And that's been a few years. So it was nice to kind of see that. I do think the A-Sun is probably not as well known because we haven't been a power in football. So our name's not out there as much as a lot of other programs. But when you look at softball across all avenue, like you said, we've been a top 5 league in the past in this sport, and it is a really strong softball program. And I'm glad Kennesaw got that bid in because they did play a really strong schedule and they were successful against some of those opponents. So I mean, it just kind of goes to show, like, the way you schedule is important, and obviously wins and losses are important, but being able to show that you can compete with high-level competition, I mean, I'm excited that they got, some props for that.
And the league's going to get stronger. New members this year, Eastern Kentucky, which has been is an NCAA tournament program. You got Jacksonville State. You got Central Arkansas coming in this year. Recent news, Austin Peay's coming in the following year. Let's start with the new members for this season, adding to the league and the impact that has on the conference.
Well, like I said, we're bringing in teams that have competed in regionals, and that's only going to go to strengthen our conference. And, we had gotten a little bit small, so it's kind of nice to be bringing in more opponents. Like, we played that COVID schedule last year, so we played divisions and played teams 6 times, and then we drew JU for the play-in round, played them another 3 times. So if I never see JU on the field again, I was familiar with their hitters than I was with my own at that point. But so now we're getting back to kind of some normalcy, and now we are going to be playing in divisions this year, but three-game series against everybody. So we're not going to have any overwhelming amount of, games against anyone. So I know we're looking to still continue to add a few more, and the goal is for this to be a pretty large conference when it's all said and done.
And I would imagine to really now become a consistent multiple bid league. I mean, from a resume standpoint, there's no reason why y'all can't continue not only to be a top 6 league, but be in that mix to be a 2 to 3 bid league, if not more, on a consistent basis with some of the programs you're bringing in. I mean, and all this realignment in college sports that's going on. I feel like the A-Sun is benefiting from a softball standpoint here.
Oh, absolutely. And then, when our teams go on and actually have success at the regional, I think it really makes a name for us. And, Liberty did a great job, and they play really well, and they knock off some high-level teams and get knocked off Tennessee. And that makes a statement because everybody, when you knock off the programs that everybody's familiar with, people start to say, hey, who's Liberty and what is the A-Sun about? So I think last year was super positive for us. And I think we're definitely moving in the right direction.
Describe, you mentioned the division. So tell the audience, what will the divisions look like now moving forward in the league with the new members added in? How was that process kind of decided on?
So basically, we're playing 3-game series, either home or away, against our own division, and separated into East or West. And then we'll play a couple crossovers, which will also be 3 games. So similar to the SEC, where we're not going to play everyone every year, because I mean, obviously that's a lot of games. But and then we'll have like a play-in round at the end, play down to a 6-team final tournament. It'll be a double elimination still, so a little bit more normal of a season than we had last year, and hopefully we can maintain that through May, or however far it goes. But scheduling is definitely getting kind of back to a normal scenario, but it's been nice to add in those new teams. I mean, the ASUN went from being kind of a Southeast region type thing, and now we're spread all the way up to Louisville, Kentucky, and Central Arkansas, I think, was like 13 hours away from us. So we're definitely broadening, so especially in geography.
And then you're going to add Austin P now the following season. I don't know if has there been discussions how that's going to fit in to the league at all, or is that like just something you'll address like next off season?
Yeah, I'm assuming that's something that's probably coming in our discussions. We haven't had any official conversation about how that factors in, because right now we're at an even 6-6 in the divisions. So how they factor in and what the schedule tweaks, how that ends up going into next year could be a little bit of an interesting conversation. But I think this East and West split and the crossover games, the way that we're playing this coming year, I think is kind of where we're headed moving forward.
Is it when you have new members coming in that you don't play as often, or is it a trickier kind of preparation, or is it easy, not that big of a deal of an adjustment? Describe the adjustments, because you're going to have 3 new members. In some cases, you're going to play them. It's not like your typical conference matchup that you're used to seeing them a lot. Is that a big deal, little deal adjustment wise?
I don't think it's a huge deal adjustment wise. I think we're, it's still going to be a matter of like doing your pregame scouting and figuring out what everybody has, but we don't have the benefit of having, seen, like we seen JU's pitchers 9 times last year. We don't have the benefit of having our hitters having seen them live to know exactly what stuff's going to look like. So it is a little bit different. Obviously, the way that our sport is broadcast now, it makes things a little bit easier from a video scouting standpoint. So obviously we use that a lot. But there is a difference when your hitters are seeing someone live and like familiar with what they know they're going to see on the mound. That part is a little bit different. Yeah.
Couple last things. What is going to be the keys for your team here as you continue in the fall and develop and then get to February? What are some of the keys for your team to have the success in the league and have the success this season? And Bill, continue that momentum from 2019 at the end when you made that ASUN tournament run. I mean, describe that run. I feel like that could help you here moving forward, because the players, especially that were part of that team and saw that, know, hey, we were that close. We were that close in 2019. It's just about crossing the dots and putting some pieces together.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with this team is really going to be stressing a focus on the process and not playing up and down based on who our opponents are, really being, invested in who we are as a team and understanding our identity and kind of making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to taking that out in the field every single day so that we always know what we're going to get. And, I think that was the biggest thing in 2019 is we hit a point where we were down to our last conference series. Whoever won that conference series between us and Stetson was going to the ASUN tournament. We ended up playing 3 shutout games that weekend. We just kind of flipped a switch. And I really think we were focusing on literally one game at a time because our life was on the line. And if we didn't win games, we were done. And, we kind of carried that mentality into the ASUN tournament. And, we dropped a game early. And, what we said was like, somebody's season is going to come to an end. Let's make sure it's somebody else's. And we just took the one game at a time focus and started winning. And then we kept winning, and then we kept winning. And I think we ended up winning the most games in that tournament of any team. And, unfortunately, we ended up dropping the championship game to Lipscomb. Played a great tournament that year as well. But the guts that our team showed, that's probably the proudest I've ever been of a team that we've had. We were down in Fort Myers in May playing. We had to play 3 games in a day that day, with the championship game being the third. And I don't think I've ever legitimately seen a team that still had compete in them, but was physically gassed. And they did everything. I couldn't have asked any more of that team. And it was, I think we carried that mentality into the 2020 season, then, and unfortunately had that, had it shut down. I would have been interested, you're left with what ifs. And I often wonder what 2020 could have been for us. And, 21 didn't work out the way that we had hoped, but I think, we have the pieces, and I think we're in good position to, maybe this is the year that'll tell us what we could have been then. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I mean, it brings that kind of hunger, right, within the players, that close in that mindset. Like I said, it's about the consistency, like you mentioned. You play usually a tough non-conference schedule. You've beaten some quality teams. I mean, even this past season, I remember you beat UCF in that dramatic walk-off up at home there, which was an incredible moment there. So, it's right there. As you mentioned, it's the consistency. Is that part of the challenge as a coach when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, is kind of that mindset, hey, being consistent every day? Because, when you're 18 to 22, you're not as consistent as you need to be as a youngster back in that age.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part of it is trying to get them to understand that you have to almost forget about results. Because if you're focused on just winning and losing and not the process that you're playing this game,
yeah,
you end up on that emotional roller coaster. I'm wearing a hat because I ended up with a lot of gray hairs through the course of life. Trying to just get them to focus on, have a swagger about the way that you play the game, and the results will take care of itself. And, it is a learning curve. And even with having, a team that's a little bit older this year, there's still a little bit of a learning curve with that. Because I don't know, like, everybody wants to win. Like, this game is about winning. You get to a regional because you're winning games, but it really is a byproduct about how you go about your day to day.
I think I'm with you. You might have to give me a hat. I'm kind of like you with the gray hair. A broadcasting softball can give you some gray hairs too. I'll just tell you that. So, Coach, obviously, thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy time as you get your team set here in the fall and get everything set up. But I appreciate you. You've always been one of our favorites on the show to have on, and it's great to have you back on. And I know we're going to cross paths here hopefully this upcoming season, and we'll talk then.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your time.